So I had, not that long ago, I had the great fortune of seeing Hillary Clinton. And it was very powerful. And she told a story, which is also in her newest book, that has stayed with me. I haven't been able to shake it. And she just sort of mentioned it like in passing. And it's extraordinary. When the United States pulled out of Afghanistan, you may recall there was this mad rush, and it was a very short period of time to get as many people out. Certainly the American US citizens who were there, and also as many women as possible to get out of Afghanistan before the Taliban took over. And Hillary Clinton and her network of organizations was dedicated to doing just that, to helping women escape. And there were a group of women that they were trying to get to Canada. They had planned all of these different groups of women to go different places in the different countries that would take them. She made a personal call to Justin Trudeau. He said yes, of course. But they had to go to Canada by way of Albania, this group of women. And they had tried to leave via the airport. And I don't know if any of you remember what that airport looked like in Kabul. It was awful, it was crowded, it was devastating, and this group of women couldn't get to the planes. And so they were able to get as many of these women as humanly possible on a bus, or buses, and as they were making their way to Albania, they were stopped by the Taliban. They came on the bus with their guns and all of it, and they told the women that they were required, they couldn't leave unless they had Albanian immigrant visas. Now, it was a matter of hours that this had to happen. It takes between 15 and 30 days, I know because I looked it up, to get an Albanian immigrant visa. So there was one person in the network of Secretary Clinton's volunteers who jumped into action. And this one person decided in that moment that they would just create Albanian immigrant visas and try to make them look as official as possible. And in a flash of brilliance, they took a picture of a QR code that was on a bag of potato chips that was sitting right there in the room. And they put it on all of these women's Albanian immigrant visas to make it look more official. And the Taliban bought it. And they were freed, and they went to Canada. And think about not only them, but the generations that follow them that were recipients of that one person who decided that they were going to do something so out of the box as to take a picture of a QR code on a bag of potato chips and have it pass as something official. I keep thinking about that person. I haven't been able to shake not only the story, but that person who had the guts and the chutzpah and the divine nudge to take a picture of that QR code and to save all of those women. And while I will most likely never meet that person who had that genius idea, what I know is that that person, without question, in that divinely ordained moment of taking that potato chip QR code picture, had a flash of powerful and mighty hope that it would work. And they let divine hope lead the way. My talk today is called Hope Leads the Way. And I have discovered upon reflection and unpacking this that so often it is hope that leads the way, that is beckoning to us if we just listen and pay attention and say, I could take a picture of a QR code on a bag of potato chips. That will work. I've been thinking a lot about hope lately, post-election, over Thanksgiving, You know, whatever may be coming up for you or whatever you may be facing in your own lives, I've come to the full realization that hope, especially now, is crucial. It's our lifeline. So many years ago, I used to think that hope was kind of wimpy. Do you know what I mean? Especially when I was a practitioner student. I thought faith was the main attraction and hope was like the trailer to the movie. You know? For a long time, I'm talking years, Shelley remembers, I poo-pooed hope. I really did. I just didn't think it was that important. I didn't understand the power of hope. People often confuse hope with wishing. I know I did. But they're two very different things. To wish for something comes from a place of not having. We wish for things that are often out of reach. We wish upon a star. We wish to win the lottery. On the other hand, hope, real hope, is grounded in reality. And this idea of hope is ancient. In Hinduism, hope is primarily represented in a Sanskrit term, asha, and it is understood as positive expectation for the future. Hope is understood as a positive expectation for the future. The original word of the meaning of the word hope from the Old English meant confidence in the future expectation of something desired, very different from wishing. The activist and professor of environmental studies, David Orr, said, "Hope is a verb with its sleeves rolled up." Hope is a verb. Now, you may be sitting there and you may be thinking, okay, but what is the difference between faith and hope? I am so glad you asked. Great question. Many folks understandably think that faith and hope are kind of sort of the same thing, you know? But the ancient writers taught us that that is not so. For example, in the ancient scripture from the Christian Bible in Corinthians, it says, there are three things that endure or remain: faith, hope, and love. Three separate things: faith, hope, and love. And of course, all three of these qualities are here for us to lean into and to learn about and from. We talk a lot around here about love. We talk a lot around here about faith, but not so much about hope. And I want to change that. Because I believe in my bones that together as a community, if we can lean into the power of hope, it will serve us and sustain us in the coming months and years. On our interfaith altar, every December, for those of you who are new, we have an interfaith altar. I mean, we're about interfaith around here all the time as a metaphysical teaching as well. But in the month of December in particular, we focus on the great faith traditions and how they celebrate the light. And so that's what we do every December. And so this week, the first week of December, our interfaith altar is representing Christianity. The candle for hope is the very first candle of Advent. Hope is a big deal. So, in answer to your question, what is the difference between faith and hope? The simplest example I can give you is, say a child is believing that their parent is going to give them a present for Hanukkah or Christmas. That's faith. They have the faith that they're going to receive a present for the holidays. The excitement and anticipation of what that present might be is hope. Do you see? Faith is the necessary ingredient for hope. Faith is the servant and server of hope, and hope is always accompanied by faith. They work together, but they are two very distinctly different things. My favorite definition of hope, and believe me, there are many, I checked. My favorite one is from one of the most influential, I should say, philosophers of the 20th century, Edmund Husserl, who called hope directed intentionality. Hope is directed intentionality. The image that comes to me when I think of this is when I think of faith, I think of sort of the mind and the body of a magnificent, glorious bird. And hope are its wings. So hope is what propels the bird or us forward. Hope is what actually makes us fly. Do you see? In their book, Active Hope, environmental activist and Buddhist scholar Joanna Macy and resilience specialist Chris Johnstone coined the term active hope. It's different. It feels different, doesn't it? It has weight to it. Active hope. Macy and Johnstone write, active hope is a practice like Tai Chi or gardening. It is something we do rather than have. Hope is a process we can apply to any situation, and it involves 3 key steps. First, we take a clear view of reality, no bypassing allowed. Second, we identify what we hope for in terms of the direction we'd like things to move in or the values we would like to be expressed. We get clarity, that's the second step. And third, we take steps to move ourselves or our situation in that direction. We move our feet or take action wherever that may be called for, and sometimes that action is rest. Macy and Johnstone continue, and this is really important to me. Active hope doesn't require our optimism. Active hope doesn't require up with people, happy, happy. I'm hopeful, everything's great. Nope. We can apply active hope even in areas where we feel hopeless. The guiding impetus, they write, is always intention. We choose what we aim to bring about or express rather than weighing the chances and proceeding only when we feel hopeful. We focus on our intention and we let it be our guide. So the focus in active hope is our intention. The intention are the wings of the thing. So the invitation for you today is to begin to see this beautiful practice of active hope as directed intentionality in your life. You know, it's important to note that approaching anything without hope is actually pretty fatalistic when you think about it. We teach that God or spirit or source, whatever word you're comfortable with, can only do for us what God can do through us. That was Ernest Holmes. And I think we've all here and at home, we've all had enough life behind us to relate to a moment of time in our lives when we didn't feel hopeful. Maybe you're feeling that right now. And if you are, please know you are not alone. Just stick with me here. The spiritual truth is that it is our natural state. It's our natural state to be in the flow of the divine, to be in the flow of the universe that is always wanting to care for us. And when we are in a temporary state of hopelessness, and beloveds, it's temporary, we inadvertently and often unconsciously block the flow of divine. Hope is not a separate out there thing. It's baked into the flow of spirit in our lives. We teach that we co-create with the divine, and hope is part of ours to do. That's part of our work, is to infuse hope in the thing, whatever that is for you. When we are feeling hopeless, though, I understand it is hard to feel God or spirit. It's hard to remember our wings, if you will. However, beautiful, great news is that the divine love, God, the angels, if that works for you, are always, always knocking at the door of our consciousness, of our heart, of our awareness, always. And it's a quiet knock. And we get this knock through other people, through messages, through songs, through aha moments. You know what I'm talking about. Divinity is always at the ready for us and is always wanting to work on our behalf. In Hinduism, the practice of recognizing or seeing this divinity is called darshan. In the Jewish tradition, the miraculous ways in which divinity or source energy show up for us is what some would refer to as divine providence. But when we are in a state of hopelessness, and I have seen this a lot on social media, given the election, we inadvertently stop the chi or the energy from flowing. And mind you, this is not an energy we can force. We can't happy ourselves into hope. See what I'm saying? Remember, active hope is available to us even when we are feeling hopeless. But it is so key to remember that it is always available to us. When we are feeling hopeless and we stop that energy, it's not that energy, that love, that spirit, that God is not here. We have just shut down. We have forgotten it. And then we can't feel it or we can't experience it. And when we are in a place of apathy, the place of no hope, we make it even harder for the angels of our better nature to shine their light for us, to direct us and guide us. But that light of darshan or divine providence is always within you. And if you can hold to that, remember that it is your birthright, this light at the center of your being, to know it and to let it guide you and to let it propel you to take off for flight. I understand deeply that hope can be hard to remember, especially when you're feeling a sense of hopelessness. And I have the deepest reservoir of compassion for that. Any of you who may be feeling that right now, know that there is so much compassion and love. And here's the thing, to really, really hear deeply with the ear behind the ear, if you can. You are truly not alone. In our community here at NTCSL, we have the opportunity to be hope for one another. The author, Nobel laureate, and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel wrote, "Hope is like peace. It is not a gift from God. It is a gift we can give one another." Hope is like peace. It's not a gift from God. It's a gift we can give one another. Hope is actually communal. Hope is meant to be shared. Shelley spoke so beautifully last week about the circle of love and our chosen family. And that one of the greatest gifts that we have is that we get to include ourselves in this circle of love. We get to recognize each other, whether you are here or you are online, whether you're here for the first time or you're here for the 10,000th time. You are in this circle of love, and we get to, in this circle of love, remember hope for you if you have temporarily forgotten it. Each one of us here in our own way can hold hope for someone else when they can't. And we do it all the time. We do it in a myriad of ways. We do it downstairs after service when we're having, coffee and nosh and just being together. We do it online in the chat box if you do that, or prayer, if you stay for prayer after service online, or if you stay for prayer here, or if you request a prayer off of our website. All of us practitioners will include you all week long in our prayer work. This can occur in our spiritual growth circles, in our affinity groups. We have men's groups and women's groups. Check it out if that calls for you. There are so many ways that we can together remind each other of active hope. To me, active hope is holy hope. It's a holy thing. And when one of us is in the place of hopelessness, sometimes it's as simple as someone saying, let me carry this for you. Or I've got you. Or as a practitioner I adore once said to me, just give it to me, sweetie. I'll take it off your heart. Hope is communal. When we can hand our hopelessness over to someone else, someone we trust, and it could be a therapist or a trusted friend, we immediately begin to feel lighter, and we immediately begin to exhale and remember our strength. The author, organizer, and educator, Mariame Kaba, wrote, "Hope is a discipline. Hope is a discipline." Because hope is a spiritual practice. Active hope is a spiritual practice. You know, something else in this conversation to unpack and to consider that may inspire you to move more deeply into this spiritual practice of active hope or directed intentionality is that, much to the surprise of many, hope is actually really practical. It's very practical. In her book, Hope Matters, Ellen Kelsey points out several studies, I'm just going to give you a tidbit here, that illustrate the value of feeling hopeful. From a scientific perspective, we know, for example, that if people have hope, they're better able to tolerate pain. And they're more likely to follow through with physiotherapy and other recuperative treatments following surgery, illness, or injury if they have hope. We know that feeling hopeful leads to a better recovery from cardiovascular disease and anxiety disorders. We know that the capacity to hope has been shown to provide a therapeutic quality that helps refugees overcome insurmountable challenges as they move forward and resettle. Hope is key for them. Living from the place of hope influences not only ourselves and the people around us, but it ripples into our collective human family. And it takes courage to have hope. It is much easier to just complain or shut down. It is much easier to say, nah, not today. Do you remember the actor Christopher Reeve? He played Superman. Do you remember? He played Superman. And the saddest thing, he was in an almost fatal accident that rendered him paraplegic, and he had to breathe on a ventilator for the rest of his life. And he had so much wisdom in his later years. He said, once you choose hope, anything is possible. Once you choose hope, anything is possible, says Superman. Consider for a moment, my friends, we do not have miracles without active hope. We do not have answered prayer without active hope in that equation. And we do not have any lasting change or healing in any area of our lives without active hope. Hope has teeth. Hope is tough. Hope does not turn the other cheek and say, well, this is the diagnosis, or I am too old, or I am too young, or this is the age of Aquarius and it's all going to be just fine. Don't mind me. I'm going to bury my head in the sand for the next 4 years. No. Hope tells the truth. Hope looks the thing straight in its face and says, yep, this is hard, and I've got you. Hope is courageous. Hope brings joy. Hope is something that cannot bypass anything. Real hope can't. I am telling you, I promise you, when you practice active hope, real hope, divine hope, holy hope, when you hold to your faith, even when it is especially difficult, that Spirit has you, always has and always will. Hope becomes a bird with wings and carries you to your next becoming. So my loves, what I want you to take away with you today is don't be afraid to hope. Don't be afraid to hope. Step in it with your whole self. And if you can't right now, we will support you.